So hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast, episode number 12, lads, of the season. And it's Warwick Classic Chase Day. And a special guest on the show is Tom Lacy. We're joined by Ronan Groome, Mr. Mike Vince, and a first appearance on the podcast for Racing Inside Track TV, Davy Boland. Davy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, lads.
We had to bring a bit of Wexford blood. Whereabouts in Wexford are you, Dave?
Just outside Enniscorthy. Very close to Paul Nolan's yards for racing people.
And latest exhibition, do you think? What's your thoughts on him?
Look, it's just unfortunate he's up against such a good horse in Monkfish. They had a great battle in Cheltenham. He was beaten a little bit easier there the last day. It was probably one of the best finishes over the Christmas period, I thought. The two of them, they went some rashes in the second last the whole way to the line. I do think latest exhibition will improve when he's on better ground. All his best runs are on better surface.
Lads, I suppose we're going to look at Warwick first of all. The Hamden Novice Chase is a grade 2. It's fairly caught up, Ronan. Next destination, we thought was going to face a happy-go-lucky. Kim Bailey's horses haven't been running too well, but he doesn't go here. So pretty short favourite here in 8 to 11. Next destination. The Tizzards have Fiddler on the Roof in here. And I suppose, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's a disappointing field, Barry, but it's a good race all the same for a three-runner field, and there's three good chances there, I think. I mean, Next Destination's interested, isn't he? This is only his second start over fences, and you're going back far enough now to find his grade 1 form, but he did beat Doyle to work, obviously, at Punchestown, and he was third to Sam Crow in the Ballymore that year. And he looked good the last day at Newbury. I thought he, for his first start over fences, he won a nice race, won that grade 2 quite well. I like Fiddler on the Roof up and Trip here. I think that could be the making of him. 3 miles. I think he ran into a very good horse in Allard the last day at Ascot, and that's pretty strong form. For all that the Tizzer team, I just can't get a hold of him this season. But what's that old chestnut that the racing chestnut they always say is back the outsider of the tree? And I think Goal on Virtue Fortune is very underrated here, especially given it's 3-runner race. And I think he could get his own way in front. Keelan Woods could just get his own way in front here. But other than that, I think his form is right up there with what Next Destination and Fiddler on the Roof have achieved. If you look what he did at Kempton, he finished 4th there to Chamblou in the Cotton Star. And the horses that he finished around put him right beside Next Destination and Fiddler on the Roof. It was one for the team, I think, finished just ahead of him. And in behind them one for the team was just behind him. And if the Cap 5th was just ahead of him. And those two horses tie in very closely with both Next Destination and Fiddler on the Roof. So at 7 to 1, getting his own way in front here would probably, arguably, the best form in the race. Golden Fortune was the one I came down on.
Yeah, that Next Destination, he obviously done it well at Newbury last time, but Newbury's a very different track to Warwick, Mike. That's why I thought I would agree with Ronan. I think Fiddler on the Roof, back up to 3 miles, a sharp 3 miles. And we'll have the soft ground here as well. The only thing is, I suppose, Tizzard hasn't had a winner in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, they've not had a great season, have they? Golden Fortune, I'm just concerned about. He's got a lack of experience over fences. And Next Destination for me. Cobden's riding well, in good form. I think they could have a good day because they've got one I'd quite fancy in the bumper as well at Warwick. Him and Nichols for Malcolm Denmark, a newcomer called Gold Bullion. But you need to win a few quid to buy your Gold Bullion, and Next Destination might be the one.
Tom Lacy, delighted to welcome you on this week's Champ.ie podcast. Tom, 2020 was another solid year for yourself. How's things at Cottagefield Stables?
Things are good here. The horses have been healthy. Just before Christmas, I just felt a few of them went just off. They weren't necessarily sick. We didn't have a horse cough. We didn't have a horse run a temperature or anything of the sorts, or leave food or anything, but there was just a bit of mucus in some horses' nose, and the vets diagnosed it was nothing but head cold, so we just backed off. We're very careful of what we did and didn't run, but we were lucky. We had, we were given some summer horses that came unexpectedly, and we got the season off to a good start, and T. Clipper won the grade 3 at Chepstow, and the horses have run consistently well throughout, thankfully.
Yeah, it's a big weekend for yourself. Adrimel is down to run in Saturday's Lemington Grade 2 at Warwick. What sort of shape is he in, Tom? And I suppose, what's the thoughts ahead of the race?
He's in great nick. I think the race revolves around 3 horses, Adrimel being one of them. Decided to put cheap pieces on, which wasn't an easy decision, stepping up in trip. But we just feel that, they might just sharpen his mind and get him to concentrate on the job in hand, because he's actually not as slow as they'd let you to believe he is. He's won 2 bumpers and twice over 2 miles. He's clearly not slow, but he's just not going through his races as professionally as I'd like him to. And I think hopefully the cheap pieces will just sharpen his mind up and hopefully his jumping a little bit.
And what was the thoughts on skipping to Tolworth? Because I know you did have an entry there.
I wasn't happy with him. He did a piece of work prior to it. I just felt that I wasn't happy with it. You can't go into any graded race if you've got any doubt in your mind,
Yeah, and you said it yourself, a step up in trip should surely suit him. He looks like a chaser definitely for next year. I suppose, how far do you think he could go in this discipline?
It's not really Lady Bamford and Alice. Then he was bought to win, nice chases. The fact that he won a bumper under a penalty, I didn't want to send him hurdling until this time this year and give him time to fill that frame and go on to fences next time around. But the horse has done nothing wrong at all throughout his time. He ran 4 times and been beaten once, which was in the champion bumper.
Looks a competitive race this weekend, and you mentioned the champion bumper. Would Prestbury Park be in the back of your mind for this season?
He wants soft ground. He wants soft ground, and if it came up soft, we could look at a race there. But I'm very much one race at a time, and obviously we have thoughts of where we could possibly end up, but it's very much one race at a time.
Yeah, sure. I suppose on topic of Warwick, last year's winner of the Classic Chase, Kimberly Candy, ran a cracker at Aintree in December. Could a return to Aintree showpiece be on the cards, do you think?
It will. I mean, that's our primary focus. He'll have a prep run in the Keltbray listed chase at Ascot on the 20th of February, and then he'll go straight to Aintree, and the national weights will be out by the time he runs in the Keltbray, and our primary goal is the national in April.
He's only an 8-year-old. I suppose plenty of room for improvement, you'd have to think. And you're happy with him since Aintree last time.
He's in great nick. He's actually a very easy horse to train, because he lets you know when he's well and he lets you know when he's not. When you're saddling in there, he'll buck and squeal in the stable and try and bite you out of the door. And he's a very straightforward horse and an easy horse to read, whereas Adrimel's the complete opposite. You think he was a hunter on the end of a rope walking around the place.
A horse I know you've always liked, Tom, is Glory and Fortune, and I see an entry in the Betfair Hurdle. Would that now be on the agenda for him?
It would. I mean, he was in at Market Race on the weekend. I took him out because I didn't want to run him back on heavy ground. He just seemed to have lost his way over fences, and I don't know whether it's a confidence thing or what, but we can always go back to fences, and I just thought we'd see that we'd go back over hurdles, try and get some confidence back into him, and see where we end up. But no, if we can get him back to where he once was, he's a horse off potentially a nice handicap mark.
I was going to say, I think he's dropped a couple of pounds. Did I see 131 rated now? That's Glory.
That's right.
Yeah.
So no, he's an exciting prospect. We've just got to get him back. We've got to get him, believing in himself again.
Yeah. Another Glory to mention, Tom, is Glory in Honour, who won over hurdles this season and won a bumper.
He's a fine horse. He's one that's done nothing wrong. I actually entered him in a race up in Musselburgh. It's I can't remember what it's called now. It's one of those. It's on the card that Sebastopol won the Scottish County Hurdle up there the last day, and he's got an entry up there for that. And I think he wants a bit of nice ground. So, that Lingfield bumper, he ended up there as much by chance as anything. The card was produced to us very late on. He was ticking over. He's a horse that takes no work. And I just thought, whilst there's grounds like this, get him out and let him have a run. And Jerry and Ash were keen to do so. But he's in the Scottish Supreme Novice Hurdle at Musselburgh on the 7th of February. And if you're going to find any nice ground, it might just be at Musselburgh.
Yeah, going back just to December, two nice winners at Doncaster that caught my eye, Vada Forte and Lincorrigible. How are they, and what is the plans for them, Tom?
Vada Forte, I made a mistake and I ran him back far too quickly, and he disappointed. That performance when he won at Doncaster was probably a career best. He'd had 8-9 goes at trying to win a novice chase, a novice handicap chase, and he finally managed to do it at Donny there. So we're delighted to get his head in front. But I don't think he's a horse that can run back quickly, and I made the mistake of running him back too quickly. So we just give him a chance to fill up and see where we end up. Yeah,
and another one that I suppose was on my list from your yard, Tom, was Unahu.
He's a big horse now. He's knocking on 17 hands, I would have thought, and he's still very young. And we're just giving him a chance to fill up. He ran back quick enough on pretty heavy. He ran twice on pretty soft, heavy ground, and it's just giving him a chance to fill up. But yeah, I'd like to find him a race before the end of the month.
And Tom, I just wanted to mention two horses that you trained to win point-to-points. They're now at Willie Mullins. The first one is, he won yesterday, Energumene. He won a point-to-point at Lark Hill. He looks mighty impressive.
From the moment we got up on his back, I mean, the ease in which he did everything was pure class. And we took him to Lark Hill the day Sebastopol won there as well. And the lorry broke down on the way. They literally got off the lorry and ran. And the pair of them they won as they liked. And and Energumene, or however one should pronounce his name, I mean, we always knew he was special from day one. He just made such light work of everything he did. And jump, I mean, I watched the race there yesterday, and his jumping was electric. He was taking length out of horses over fences. And if you can do that, that's one way of getting, punishing any other horse in behind you, making, small errors.
Yeah, interesting that you said you always knew he was special. And, obviously he won a point-to-point, so I saw comments surrounding him, like he obviously has the option of going to all three of the novice races. But in terms of what you saw at home, in his early days, does he lack? He probably doesn't lack any pace, does he?
Oh no, he's not a slow horse. I mean, I read somewhere there this morning on Twitter that his sectionals were exceptional yesterday, and he's far from a slow horse. But those 2 milers are, they're fast and they stay, and they're just quality, aren't they? They're a class above the majority of horses.
And in your mind, would he be one of the best that's come through your setup?
I think potentially he's the best, yeah. I mean, we've had some lovely horses through here, Blackbow. Yeah. There's one or two, it's the same as, not all of them necessarily, it's not always their year, is it? But, there's some lovely horses out there running from English Pointing and from this yard and many other yards. I mean, Santini ran out at English Point yard, and, I don't think it matters which side of the RSC you're on, a nice horse can come from anywhere.
And he won his point-to-point on good ground, but you think that you always thought he'd be better on soft?
Look, it was very safe ground the day we ran him. You get limited opportunities with a 4-year-old. When they tell you they're ready to run, you need to run them. And it was perfectly safe ground, and we ran him when he was ready. He's clearly he clearly handles the soft, and he missed a year. So I'm not quite sure how fragile he is or what. I don't know. He wasn't fragile when he was here, but Willie loves giving horses time, which is one of the the joys of selling horses to Willie Mullins, is he never rushes them. And we've sold him 3 now, and we haven't seen them from the day we sold them. That I don't think any one of them's run within 11 months. So that goes to show you what time you give a horse, and maybe that's why they work out so well.
Yeah, and you mentioned Willie Mullins. I suppose the other one that came through your hands was Ramillies, who was mightily impressive in the bumper at Leopardstown, and he could be one that could go to the champion bumper. And Willie, the comments from Willie was he could be potentially top drawer. Did you always think the same?
We did. He wasn't quite as precocious as Energumene. He was more of a backward store, but I always say those 4-year-olds that win their points, they win it on, ability, and their ability carries them through their physical weaknesses. And Ramillies won in good fashion. He overreached very badly the day he won. And he was a horse that found life particularly easy at home, and we always thought he was special. But I was a bit disappointed with his first run for Willie, and Willie's given him time, and it seems to have rewarded him because he looked incredibly impressive when he won at Lemington there.
Tom, that's brilliant. I'm going to take a couple of questions from Twitter. I know you've answered a couple, but we'll go through just a couple of them as they came. Which one or two pointers at the time of selling them did you consider was the most likely to reach the very top? And that comes from Dash on Twitter.
Energumene was he was always, I always thought he was exceptional. King Roland's a fair horse now, but he doesn't help himself. He's just too free in his races until he learns to settle. But I think he's a horse definitely worth following.
Edward Sheehy asks, will Adrimel appreciate the step up in trip, and is he one of the best best horses that you've trained?
He'll definitely appreciate the step up in trip. I think it'll allow him to go through the race without being forced. He's done nothing wrong, to say, is he one of the best horses I've trained? He's rated 132. I think he's a way better horse than 132, and I'll be incredibly disappointed if he can't surpass that mark and some. But he's still got a lot to prove, and his potential with the fence in front of him is very exciting.
Finally, Patrick says, do you think that the Marathon Grand National trip will see Kimberley Candy going close?
Yes, I do. I mean, he's jumped around there twice now, and his jumping's been pretty much put perfect. He made a mistake at the first this time at the feature chase. Otherwise, his jumping was very good. I think if he can get a nice racing position in the national and jump as he has done around there twice before, I can't see why he won't stay the trip. And he's hit the line hard both times he's been up there in the Beecher, and he hit the line very hard in the Classic Chase last year. So I don't think there's any question about him staying the trip.
Tom Lacy, that's fantastic. Thanks very much for featuring on the Champ.ie podcast. I wish you luck with Adrimel over the weekend and for the rest of the season. Davy, I'll come to you on this one first. Admiral here 7-2 for Tom Lacy. We spoke to him earlier on. Make Me a Believer for David Pipe, 7-2. Oscar Elite again for the Tizzards in here, 9-2 Shot Midnight River, 11-2. Hasn't been seen in quite a while. JBY, I thought he was interesting at 15-2 for Alan King. Mint Condition 8-1. Optimised Prime 10-1. Lord of Carac 11-1. That's 14-1 the rest. Thoughts on this, Dave?
As you said, you spoke to Tom Lacy earlier on. His horse is joint favourite. I fancy Make Me Believer. I thought he was impressive the last day. He doesn't have a whole lot of experience behind him. It's funny that these two meet. They actually met in a point-to-point, both on their first runs, and Admiral won and Make Believer fell. Oscar Lee has good form on heavy grounds. I see, Mike, they have it down as soft, but I'd imagine it's not gonna be soft grounds. When you see what the ground's been like in England this week, I'd imagine it's going to be heavier. But there's a horse there of Ollie Murphy's. His horses are running very well at the minute. Laura Creek, he's £3 better off this time against Tom Lacy's horse. Now, he does have 3.5 lengths to make up, but I think he could improve. He's a big price at 11-1, but if I have to pick one, I fancy Make Me Believer. David Pipe's horse is in very good form as well.
Colin Bow down your neck of the woods. JBY won a point-to-point for Colin. I thought he was quite interesting, Dave. Look, his point-to-point has worked out pretty well, and he's a course and distance winner. Would that form be a little bit underestimated coming in here? He won by 9 lengths, strong travelling type by Yates. And look, I thought the further he went, the better he got last time. I don't know, had you your eye on him either, JBY?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like you said, a point-to-point winner, and he won there over course and distance. It was a weak race, all right, but you can't beat course form, all right. But for me, it's Make Me Believer. I thought it was an impressive display the last day. He was going away, and I think over this trip he'll even be better again now on Saturday.
Mike, have you been speaking to Mr. David Pipe recently?
Yeah, ran well at Cheltenham, didn't he? He's had a couple of runs since his swing surgery. But it's too short for me. But this is the problem with this race, is that you're looking at horses that have won novice races nicely, stepping up. And just in answer to David's question about the ground, it probably is soft as we talk. But as we've learned in Britain in the last couple of weeks, 24 hours is a lot of time to produce a lot more rain. I'm going to go in and suggest here a horse that reminds me of glorious, happy days spent in that beloved town of Wexford, with a glass in my hand in the Talbot Hotel at the end of the pier, and making sure that as you walk down the quay, you don't get run over by the train. Pure bliss. She gets weight. She's won 2 from 2. She's a mare, and I think double figure price. She's a knocking good each way bet here. Good win at Exeter last time, and Exeter takes some getting as well. But in a wide open race, I mean, she's getting at least £7 from everything else in the race. Pure bliss each way, especially if I've seen somewhere 14-1 is about. I think she's a knocking good each way bet, and roll on my next trip to Wexford is all I can say.
Davy Boland might have a point waiting for you. Ronan Groome, the 225, as we said, at Warwick, the Lemington. Look, we start saying how competitive it is. You know, there's 12 go to post here, and you could make a case for a good 8 of them here at least, could you?
Absolutely, Barry. Yeah, it's a good race, and for that reason, I kind of want to be against Adrimel. For all that I did like him at the start of the season, I thought he was an exciting horse. I do think he'd be good up on trip, but he was workmanlike just the last day, just to get it done. And yeah, he's going to need the trip, I think, to bring about that improvement to win a race like this against the caliber horses he's against here. Lots of really exciting horses coming in here off wins. Davey mentioned him briefly. The one I actually really like is Lord of Kerrak there for Ollie Murphy. Now, he was beaten by Adrimel by 3 lengths, and he has that to find, but he won at Utoxeter up and trip, and I thought that was quite a good race. He stayed on nicely that day, and he's got what Adrimel hasn't. He's got a win over this sort of trip, and I think that is in his corner. He's handled soft ground, and I think he's progressed on each 3 of his 3 starts, and significantly as well. I think Ollie Murphy's starting to come into a bit of form. He's had a few winners. He had a double at Hereford on Monday, and he had a winner today as well. I love Ollie Murphy as a trainer. I just think what he's done since he's moved back, his progression, his rate of progression has been seriously fast, and horses are just coming into form for him. And I can't see this Lord of Kerrak going off 11 or 12-1 as he is now. I think they'll come from at the end, given that Adrimel is the 7-2 and sets the pace in the market. So yeah, I like Lord of Kerrak.
Yeah, interesting. JBY for me, I think it could be underestimated. As I said, the course winner, 9 lengths, was only a maiden, but his point to point has worked out well. I think he could be value here in an open looking race, JBY. Lads, coming on, I suppose, to the big race at Warwick on Saturday. It's the 3 o'clock. It is the Mackay Contractor Civil Engineering Classic Handicap Chase. It's over the extreme distance of 3 mile and 5 furlong. Quick show betting, Captain Chaos. The 10-year-old is a 4-1 chance. Not a chance, 9-2. Storm Control, 5-1. La Broyle, the National Hunt Chase winner of 2019, is 11-2 shot. Walk in the Mill is 10-1. Django 11-1. Akili is 12-1. For Venetia Williams, one of 2 runners in the race. Late Romantic, 12-1. Optic 14-1 and 16-1. Sorry, 14-1 Dodero Vallis, and it's 16-1 the rest of the field. Roland, we'll come to you on this one. What sort of race? It looks a weaker race than last year, I have to say. Yeah,
you could say that it's probably less runners, and there's a few of them out of the handicap at the bottom. But I still think there's enough interesting horses there that make it an intriguing kind of contest. I mean, you're looking at the likes of Not a Chance there, is lightly raced, did it nicely at Bangor, and as a scope to kind of progress over this trip. Captain Chaos was obviously second in the race last season, comes back off the same sort of mark. Kerry Lee, I think this was the race that she kind of announced herself as a trainer, and I remember that because I was there at Warwick that day when I used to live in London. I got to train up. She won this with Roos Blank, and she's got a nice chance again here with Storm Control. I thought his race the last day at Cheltenham was hilarious. You see the horse just gone 10 lengths clear on the straight and just idled in front. And once he saw the horses come up to him, he went away again. So it's a sign of a horse who had plenty left in the tank there and could progress again. But the one I kind of liked, Barry, was Late Romantic, who's interesting just on the fact that he was being primed for the Veterans Chase at Sandown, and they decided to run in the second preference up at Kelso, I think it was. And then Kelso got called off. So they kind of messed up a bit there, but it means he comes here instead. And I just like the way his form has worked out. He beat a horse called the Dutchman at Haydock on heavy ground over 3 miles and 2. And the Dutchman was running a really good race in the Royal America at Wetherby on St. Stephen's Day when he came down. So I think he could be nicely treated. I like him. I like his profile. He's an 11-year-old, like with not many runs over fences, and I think this could be the sort of race that he could prosper in. He reminds me of like the likes of Hawks Point and Milan's Bar, who won this race before, kind of lightly raced 11-year-olds who kind of are just ripe now for this sort of trip at the age in their life. So at 12-1, Late Romantic did for me.
I think younger sort of horses have a better record in this race. I think 3 8-year-olds have won it. There's been a couple of 7-year-old winners as well. And Didero Vallis was one that interests me. I know we were speaking off air. A couple of you guys like the look of Venetia's other horse, Akil. But Didero Vallis was a beaten favourite last time. I thought he was a fairly big price here at 14-1. He's had his 2 starts. I think he'll handle obviously the ground. Venetia's had 3 winners in the last 2 days, so her yard is actually in good form. And I thought the track at Warwick might suit him. Davy, had you opinion on this one?
I actually like Venetia's horse Akil, but the only issue I'd have is he hasn't ran in quite a while. He hasn't ran in over 14, 15 months. But I do like Storm Control. I think this sort of trip is ideal for him. Kerry Lee's very good with these sort of horses. If Akil had a run, I'd be saying him. And like you said, Venetia Williams' horses are in very good form. And whatever it is about our horses, they seem to love testing conditions, as you've seen yesterday and today. But if I have to pick one, like you said, it is a weak renewal. But I like Storm Control. I think he's good form, and I think this trip is ideal for him.
Interesting, Davy. Well, Mike, have you an opinion on this one?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, this is the race that produced one for Arthur, didn't it? It produced Milan's Bar. And I mean, last year, Captain Chaos 2nd, the bottom one, Petit Paris 3rd, Le Broy was 5th. It's a race that's benefited because at least 3 of these were supposed to be running at Catterick on Thursday in the North Yorkshire Grand National, which got called off. Le Broy has to have a chance. I mean, he got a fantastic ride, didn't he, from the Codfather? Not the first time that the Codfather's been bracketed with the words outstanding ride. I'm absolutely fascinated here by the booking of Richard Johnson for Django for John Joe. And they've put the cheek pieces on and is in on off a featherweight. What is he, £2 out of the handicap? And the top weight of 11-12 is a big, he's getting 2 stone. All right, it's going to be 1 stone 12 from Ballyoptic, the top weight. And if you look back through his form, he was 5th last time in a pretty competitive race at Newbury. And then go further back to sort of the start of 20, and he was a good winner on heavy ground over 3 miles at Newbury. And then, incredibly, he got sent to Catterick. I don't know what you do. What's the to run in the Ladies' Day Novices Chase? I don't know what you do to deserve to get sent to Catterick. But he managed to do it, and he did actually win a staying hurdle series final, 50,000 quid. I think he's got to be worth a chance each way. I don't like this as a race. It's nothing like as strong in depth as last year. And Akil, of course, carries the Monmouth colours, and it's surely fascinating that Charlie Deutsch rides that, because I assume would have had the choice. And it's no food for Skoo again. He's down to ride Didero Vallis off 10 stone. So at a double figure price, Django each way for me.
Django each way for Mike. Didero Vallis for me. You mentioned, Tom Scudamore rides come right back down the weights though. And as I said, 8-year-olds seem to have a good record in this. I think Warwick the Sharp track will suit him going back up in trip. Lads, suppose big racing on at Fairyhouse this weekend. Davy, I might come to you. I know you have fancy in this one, in the Danmore.
Yeah, I like Emmett Mullen's horse, the Shunter. The only problem would be in a tough handicap chase like this is inexperience. He has only had 4 runs over fences, but he was very impressive, as I'm sure he's remembering when he won the Great Wood the last time. He's only rated 134. He's rated £2 better off than he is over hurdles. Emmett Mullins, as you know, is very good with turning up to these handicaps, and he's a horse his form that I like, and they obviously go a good gallop in the Great Woods. So if they go a good gallop in this, even though it is testing conditions in Fairyhouse, this is a horse I like.
There could be a few.
Emmett's very good.
Yeah, it looks like he'll take the opportunity as well. I mean, obviously the Great Wood hurdle winner will handle the ground. Looks like, I suppose it looks like they've come here to maybe exploit that, and there could be a couple of other handbrakes up with a couple of the other runners.
I'd imagine there is a few others there with something in mind further down the roads, back end of the season for other horses. But obviously Mick Winter's horse was very impressive the last day in Cheltenham. I'm sure everybody's seen the celebrations from Mick and that. So, and Mick's very good at keeping his horses very fresh, you know. So no doubt his lad will have a right chance. But it's Emmett Mullen's horses for me in this race.
He's come up a fair bit in the way at Cheltenham Street, lad, but the way he won it, I mean, I suppose his options at Cheltenham, but back down in trip here, so he's going to be thereabouts, you'd have to imagine. Ronan, what's your thoughts? I suppose I am deserting Cheltenham Street, lad. I'll give a selection in a moment, but what's your thoughts first?
Yeah, it's a fascinating race, Barry. And the main question, I suppose, is who is there's a lot of handbrakes on here. There might be a lot of handbrakes on here, as you guys are alluding to there. And who is with the Cheltenham entries, the handicap race is coming up. You're just kind of thinking who has that in mind. It's interesting. Mark Walsh rides in 2 casts over Front View, who I thought was probably the most interesting out of the JP runners. The way he won the last day, he got up late on to beat Port Stanley, and I thought he had a better looking chance than in 2 casts, but there wasn't much in it. Obviously, and 2 casts was second in the good 2 mile race that often good 2 mile handicap chase won by Size and Potsy that often is a good feeder race for this race. Cheltenham Street Lad is obviously the kind of star name in there, and you know, off 151, and they're talking about going for the Grade 1 at Cheltenham. He'd probably want to go and win here over 2 miles. So I can see why he's favourite. I have no problem with him being favourite. The Shunter is obviously, it's hard to read him, whether he can be as good over fences as he was over hurdles, or as well handicapped as he was over hurdles. I'm not completely sure, and I suppose the market would be a good guide to him on the day. The one at a bigger price that was interesting is Fan de Blues for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. Now, you wouldn't really associate Willie Mullins with this race. He doesn't really have many runners in it, I don't think, and he hasn't won it since he won it with Turban probably about 7 or 8 years ago. But this Fan de Blues is interesting. He was second to a horse called Ben Rubin, who's a good chaser in his own right, and he's been over hurdles this season. He comes back over fences now, back down to 2 miles. First time Hud, and Townend is obviously riding for Mullins. I just can't see it going off 12-1, to be honest. Willie's usually right when he moves horses around and trip, and just thought he was interesting that he's back here after finishing down the field in a Grade 1 3 mile hurdle at Christmas. So 12-1, Fan de Blues is the most interesting, but an intriguing race.
Yeah, you mentioned front View. I think he was the one off 136. I mean, he was a big fancy, obviously, for Cheltenham last year, but I thought over course and distance, again, course form, the last time, I don't think Mark Walsh was over hard on him, and yet he still won. You know, he made up an awful lot of ground late on. The ground, again, is going to be on the testing sign. Just at the price, as Cheltenham Street Lad, he's been well punted now. He's, as your famous phrase, Ron, he's well found in the market at 5-2 there. The Shunter obviously has an obvious chance, looks well in at the weights. And then 2 casts, I hope the Grand Annual on better ground could be on his radar, which would make me think that there'd be, I don't know, maybe he might go and win here, but I just think on better ground he's going to be better. And Front View was the one. So you mentioned the jockey bookings there, but even with Jody McGarvey on board, I would take a chance at 8-1 that he could follow up his victory at Fairyhouse. Mike, had you thoughts here?
it's one of those, isn't it? It should have a little notice at the top saying punting can damage your wealth. But there's one that did catch my eye, and it was on its stable debut. And that's the one that Brian Cooper rides, Bellamy de Civilia. Used to be with Noel Mead, went to the big Fairyhouse meet at the end of November, finished second. Very possibly might have come on for that. Again, an each way price in what is a really horrible race. Whatever you tip here, there's probably 14 reasons why you're on the wrong one. Bellamy de Civilia each way for me.
Interesting, Mike. Lads, moving on to Punchestown on Sunday. Of course, the Moscow Flyer Novices Hurdle often serves up pointers towards the Cheltenham Festival Supreme Novice Hurdle in particular. Ronan Groome, you love a good story. This Master McShee is certainly one of those, anyway.
100%, Barry. You love to see it. Paddy Corkery, kind of small-time trainer down in Cork, and his quotes in the Racing Post this week were very good. You know, he's not willing to sell a dream, and Master McShee is the horse for him that he's going to hopefully take him to Cheltenham, and he can more or less book a ticket with a good run here. If he won here, it'd be a Grade 1 race maybe for him, maybe something like the Supreme or the Ballymore. But if he runs well, then there'd obviously be a handicap option for him as well. Like, I thought he did it well at Christmas. I find it interesting that Willie Mullins used to always send his best horse to this race. He won it with Vautour, Duvan, Min, Get a Bird. And probably the Dublin Racing Festival effect has taken his attention away from this race. He runs Ganapathy here, who done it quite well. Magic Tricks, I don't think the form is worked out quite well from his Navan Maiden Hurdle win. I like the way he did it, but just disappointing in the second and third. And Willie's horse in that race, Manito Park, was quite disappointing. So
you say that his bumper form, though, Ronan, he didn't finish so far behind Ever Present, and I know the Harringtons think a lot of him.
Yeah, look, bumper form and maiden hurdle form, I think is my views on bumpers, to be honest with you. So it's a different kettle of fish now. But he won nicely, so you wouldn't be surprised if he goes well here. Look, the one I thought was interesting was De Bromhead's Guad the Large. I thought he did it really nicely the last day. He won by 23 lengths and still looked quite green and a baby. I was just listening to Henry De Bromhead after the race, and he was delighted with him. He thought he was just a big baby, and that he managed to win so well kind of half surprised him. So if he turned up here, he'd be interesting. And obviously the real deal for Ronan McNally would be a very intriguing runner as well. So if they all kind of show up, the ones at the top of the market there, the race is priced up already, you see. If they all showed up, it'd be a hell of a race.
Davey, what way do you see it? I suppose Master McShee on official ratings now, and he's ran in a handicap last time up, and the second horse I know was pretty well punted that day. C Decor, but he's rated 143 now, Master McShee. And I suppose Rona mentioned Real Deal, and I was wondering your thoughts on him, because that's another one that came through the handicap route, and he's up to 141. And just at the prices, there's a fair big difference now between 5-2 and 10-1. But whether he goes or not here, I suppose, is another question.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't know what's going to go. But I actually backed Master McShee the last time. I thought he was very, very impressive. Like Ronan mentioned there about Magic Tricks, the form it's not great, but I know they think an awful lot of this horse, and they thought a lot of him going to his bumper, and they were very disappointed that he got beaten. He's a full brother to Abracadabras, if I'm right, I think. He was second to a very other. Gordon actually bought the first and the second from the point to point. So they think a lot of him. So I think they'll all know where they stand with these novices and with Master McShee, because if they can't beat him, they're not really good enough to be going to Cheltenham with a chance in a Grade 1, are they? But I think he can improve, though. For me, I know it's boring going with the favourite, but I think he can beat all these. I think he can improve again. That was a serious performance the last day in Leopardstown. And like Ronan mentioned, it isn't a great story as well, for the small man down in Cork, and Ian Power as well coming back. And on a big day as well. So I think
is that his only horse, Master McShee? How many horses has he, Paddy Corkery?
I think he only has 2 or 3.
Yeah, because it's pretty remarkable, isn't it? Shades of Danoli, would it be, if he was to go to Cheltenham?
If he bolted up on Sunday, there'd be some kick for the boys going to Cheltenham then with a real good chance. But I honestly do think he's the one to beat. None of these novices have done anything really impressive, bar like what Ronan mentioned. I'll back that up as well. Henry's horse was very impressive, but they all still have to improve, you know. And they have to get to a mark of what, if Master McShay can improve again, which I think he will, someone's gonna have to run to a mark of 150 or 150 plus, you know.
Mike Vince, do we rule Willie Mullins out at our Pearl?
Well, fascinating. I was here. Ronan's obviously he's been burgling my notes again, because I had Guadalajara as one for me here, because I was really impressed with that Thurley's race, because Willie, of course, he'll have a yardstick because he had that horse Gazumi who fell when beaten by Guadalajara, who won by 23 lengths. I think this horse is one that's got potential. I mean, Gordon's won it the last twice with, what was it, Andy Dufresne, and he won it the year before with Felix Deji, didn't he? And I don't think there's anything of that standard here. So you're looking for something with potential. We don't know how good Ganapati is. Did what she had to on debut. And I think Guadalajara is a really nice prospect and the proof of the pudding, as they say. I think if I had to go here, I'd go Guadalajara, to be honest.
I'm sitting on the fence for this one. Can't make head nor tail of this race, lads.
That's not too painful.
Davy, we must ask you about Envoy Allen, because it was your first time on the Champ.ie podcast, and I want to ask you, do you think he's as good as everyone is saying that he is? Is he invincible?
I'm not sure about invincible, but I think he's as good as everyone says. Trip, ground, everything. He has it all. He's a serious animal. But £11 is a lot of weight to give away to a Grade 1 horse. I know Styrian Falange fell the last day, but he was impressive when he won his beginners. It is a lot of weight, but I still think Envoy Allen will win, giving that weight away. I don't think he's just so good, and he's proved that. What I like about him is he only does what he has to do. He's not one of these bridle horses that's real flashy. You know, every time he's asked a question, he always answers. And but I think it'd be interesting. It will be good with that £11. It's huge weight, but Envoy Allen for me, yeah.
I noticed the tongue strap was on last time and it's off again here. Do you think that they were worried about his wind in any way, or was that just trial and error? What do you think the thought process was behind that?
Jesus, your guess is as good as mine. There's only one man that knows that, and that's Gordon. But I've never heard about the horse having a wind issue or anything. What I would say is, do you know what I'm very impressed with? And I know he is a genius, Gordon Elliott. But I love the route that he's taken with this horse, you know. A lot of people would have ran this horse at Christmas and then went to Dublin Racing Festival and tried to rack up the Grade 1s. I like what he's done here after the Drimore, coming here to this race and we'll go straight to Cheltenham then, you know. I think he deserves a lot of credit for doing that.
Yeah, before I suppose we finish up on Punchestown, Davy, is there anything else at Punchestown or even in Fairyhouse that you like this side of the Irish Sea this weekend?
There is a horse just to keep an eye on. I wouldn't say he was impressive or anything in his point to point, but he was very good. As a horse at Gordon's in the bumper in Fairyhouse. Now, I'm not saying I'm not tipping this horse or anything else, but I was very impressed with him when he won his point to point for Colin Bowe and Linkstown. Jerry Colombo, he sold for a lot of money down at the sales. Rob Corr bought him. As we know, look, Ginto was the big talking horse a couple of weeks ago in Fairyhouse, and he got beaten by a newcomer of Willie Mullins, and Willie has one here. But I thought this horse was very good, and I know Barry O'Neill was very fond of this horse before he won on him and after he won on him. So he's a horse to keep an eye on in the bumper on Saturday. Sorry.
Ronan, anything for you?
Yeah, look out on Sunday at Punchestown for a horse called Envol Piergi. Backed off the boards for the ladies' handicap chase at Fairyhouse the last day and finished third. I think he could be coming up in trip now to 3 miles, which would be interesting. He's off 109, so he could be in a bit of trouble if the top weight gets declared, because he would be quite close to being out of the handicap then, maybe, if my maths is doing me correct. No, he'd actually be all right. Sorry, ignore that completely. So he was interesting. Given how well he was back the last day, and he has some very classy back form. I think he won quite a good pointer back in the day, if my memory serves me correctly. Just let me check that. Yeah, he was second to Chantry House in a point-to-point at Tattersall Farm. So he's clearly a bit of ability there, and if there is, he's 11 pounds lower than his hurdles mark 109. It could be very interesting. That's at Punchestown, the 220 at Punchestown on Sunday.
Yeah, just one to mention for myself as just for the tracker. I'm not so sure if he's going to win this because I think he's other targets in mind. But on Monday's show with Andrew Blair White, I mentioned a horse called Autumn Evening, and he actually flagged him up for potentially for the Fred Winter or the Boodles. He had a good run behind Zanet Fear last time. He won actually on debut for Jessica Harrington at Cork on heavier ground. I think he could be quite smart, but I think it is a hot looking race. There's a couple of horses here that have ran in France. One from Gavin Cromwell here in the JP Manus colours. Josh did, and also Willie has one for the McNeil family, which is an interesting recruit as well. And so they'll probably dispute favoritism. Joseph has one in here as well. But Autumn Evening, I'll just be interested to see how he runs, because I think the Fred Winter is probably going to be a target for him. So that's the very first race at Fairyhouse. But we're going to come on to naps and MBs of the weekend. Mike Vince, we'll start with you. You're probably leading the way in terms of naps and MBs on the Champ.ie podcast this season. So we'll start with your good self.
I'm going outside left for my nap and going for one which I suspect will be good enough to win, although I'm a little bit concerned that the ground will be shocking and typical January by the time we get there. The Nichols horse making its debut in the bumper called Gold Bullion for Malcolm Denmark will do for me for the nap. It reminds me of Wexford, amongst other things, and also working with the legend that is Ronan Groome. And next best, with the hope that I'll be allowed it each way, I really do think Pure Bliss getting all that weight in the Lemington, the 225 at Warwick, has a knocking good chance of being in the money.
Ronan Groome.
Yeah, Barry, I'm going to Warwick for both of my plays. Warwick, a beautiful racecourse and in a beautiful town in the middle of England. I'd advise anyone, if they wanted to go to a normal, any Irish person who wants to go racing in England and didn't want to go to one of the big tracks, Warwick, Mike will tell you, is a lovely place to go racing. And
just avoid the one-way system in the town, which is if you start there at 9 o'clock, you might get out of it by lunchtime.
Yeah, you want to stay the night. They're lovely pubs there. You'll be happy out. Drink out of a flagon, and you'll be all right. But the one I like, Barry, I'm going to nap Lord of Carrick for Ollie Murphy in the Lemington. I just think he's very nice price, 11-1, and with a progressive profile, and Ollie Murphy's horse is coming into form. I just like him. And then the next best, I'm going for Late Romantic in the Classic Chase. I just think he's possibly well handicapped off mark of 137, lightly raced 11-year-olds, and coming up to this trip, I think he can run really well.
Davy, nap and MB weekend.
My nap is going to be the Shunter in the Dan Moore for Emmett Mullins. And next best will be Make Me a Believer in the Lemington. I think the trip, the grounds, the racing itself, I think is ideal for him. I think there's a lot of improvement in this horse. Davy
Boland going to make his name for himself on the Champ.ie podcast, naps and MBs. I'm going to take a chance, lads, just strictly on prices for a nap here on JBY. Again, as we said, it's a competitive looking race, but I just think his form, his course form win of 9 lengths in the maiden hurdle might be underestimated in here. It's a fair step up, but I think his point to point has worked out quite well. And I think he could be underestimated here. That's for Alan King, JBY. And I will next best Didaro Vallis in the Classic Chase at Warwick. So I'm like Ronan, I'm staying with Warwick. Look, he's come right back down the weights. He's in off 10 stone here. Tom Skoo up, and Venetia's horse is running quite well at the moment. 14-1, I think he might be overpriced. And as I said earlier, 8-year-olds do have a strong record in this race. So that's the Classic Chase at Warwick. I suppose, lads, that concludes the Champ.ie podcast. Mike Vince, I think we've been delaying you tonight.
No, it's fine. It's, what is 45 minutes for the chance to spar in such majestic and exalted company, and think of that wonderful place called Wexford, which hopefully I shall be returning to at some stage this summer and going beyond Bettyville. And let's hope it's a good day. And good luck also. Mentioned significant for us to watch and hope it goes well, if I may. Willie Mullins sending a runner to Market Raisin for the big race there. It obviously has significance to make sure that it can travel and everything goes well from that point of view, with the festival in mind. So not as a punter, but just as a racing man. Let's hope that goes well. All the red tape is put in the right place, and that one day, then that'll be a massive tick in a box ahead of Cheltenham.